Hello, dear students. It's me, Juan. The population of America is incredibly diverse. With such a diverse population, you would hope our national politics could mirror that diversity. Is it even possible to mirror such diversity within our two-party system? Does a two-party system make sense for America? What are the alternatives? Well, truth be told, there are other democratic systems in the world where two parties do not dominate politics. What are these systems? What can we learn from these other governments? And what are their benefits? In today's lesson, we will identify the different types of party systems around the world. We will then compare and contrast those other systems with our own. And finally, by the end of this lesson, you should be able to advocate the party system that you feel best fulfills the principles of democracy and meets the needs of people. Before we jump in, remember, America does have more than two parties. We call these other parties third parties because they do not have a chance of dominating the major offices. But they are still important. They influence the results of the elections by taking votes from the two dominant parties. They introduce new ideas and issues and ensure the two major parties reflect changes in society. In other nations, there are also third parties, and fourth parties, and fifth parties. These parties are not called third parties because they actually have a chance at winning major elections. Some other nations have only one party, with all other parties banned. These are usually associated with authoritarian regimes. So how many parties are we talking about here? Well, in multi-party systems, you have three or more viable parties. For example, Canada has 3 parties. Germany has 5. Israel loves to party. They have 20. And all of these parties compete in a real way during elections. With all these parties duking it out, no party typically gains a majority of votes in multi-party elections. So, since no party really gains the support of the majority of people, is a multi-party system a better reflection of democracy or worse? Democracy is supposed to both reflect and protect the will of individuals while also promoting the public good. Remember the social contract? By engaging in the social contract, citizens use the government as a tool to help navigate the contradiction between personal liberty and equality for all. Different interests compete, such as property distribution versus maintaining social welfare. Without the ability for a party to achieve a majority consensus, resolving these tensions becomes more difficult to achieve in an equitable, across-the-board manner. But multi-party systems expand the different political positions possible in a society. This difference of opinion can force something called coalition governments. Word alert! A coalition government is a form of government in which political parties cooperate to form a government. The usual reason for such an arrangement is that no single party has achieved an absolute majority after an election. Parties that are similar form governments in which they share power. This is a typical process in multi-party systems. The necessity of achieving a working government reveals the underlying truth that democracy relies on compromise. The rule of law sets a standard in which society can engage in civil discourse and compromise. However, these coalitions can become unstable due to ideological splits and competitive positions on issues. So it can become difficult for coalition governments to create and effect policy. Finally, having a multi-party system simply creates more choice, and it makes it more difficult for one party to dominate and possibly become corrupt over time. Now, on the flip side, we have the one-party system. Just like it sounds, in this system, there is one party. All other parties are banned. These systems can appear as democratic, but they empty democracy of its basic principles by criminalizing and silencing dissenting views. In these systems, elections are usually just for show, as they do not rely on the will of the majority. More typically, they rely on the use of force. In these systems, the lack of real debate and free thought makes it easier for the one party to create policies and put them into effect. In a system with one party, the rule of law becomes rule of force, and dialogue is sacrificed in the name of security. One-party systems tend to be very stable and secure, as the same party maintains power easily, as long as economic stability renders society stable. Globalism brings challenges to these systems, however. When set in relation to larger global market forces and policies set by other, more democratic systems, these systems are open to more democratic influences and desires. These influences can then create instability, which in turn requires greater levels of force that can ultimately lead to revolution. Time to show what you know. Grab a writing instrument and let's go. How can multi-party systems represent greater levels of democratic diversity? What issues exist in multi-party systems? What do one-party systems use to socially control a nation? What can destabilize a one-party system? Let's do some comparisons. First, let's look into the two-party system versus the multi-party system. What do they have in common? Well, both of these systems rely on representative or republican processes, such as parliamentary procedures. Word alert! Parliamentary procedure is based on the principles of allowing the majority to make decisions effectively and efficiently, majority rule, while ensuring fairness towards the minority and giving each member or delegate the right to voice an opinion. Both the multi-party system and the two-party system are founded on democratic principles. They both believe in the rule of law, the separation of powers, popular sovereignty, and the social contract. Finally, both hold regular, constitutionally prescribed elections. There are differences between the two. The multi-party system tends to be less stable than the two-party system. This instability comes from the lack of clear majorities and the need to build coalitions with other parties with unique ideologies. Word alert! Ideology refers to a system of ideas and ideals, especially one which forms the basis of economic or political theory and policy. Two-party systems tend to be more stable, as there is usually a clear majority. Coalitions do form, but they occur between factions of the same party, and in that way are much easier to construct and maintain. Multi-parties also have a greater tendency to get stuck in gridlocks because of hyper-competition between parties and the inability to form clear and strong majorities. With clear majorities, a two-party system tends to allow more momentum towards sweeping change and longer time periods of stable progress. On the other hand, multi-parties allow greater levels of participation and more progressive ideas enter mainstream politics. Whether good or bad, a two-party system tends to be more conservative overall. This is because less radical and extreme ideas find their way to mainstream politics. Alright, time to show what you know. This one has some directions, so listen up. We're going to create a Venn diagram that compares and contrasts multi-party and two-party systems. First, draw two circles that interlock like the one on the screen. Label the right side two-party and the left side multi-party. Next, place the specific characteristics of each under the appropriate circle. Finally, place what is the same in the middle. What's more important to you, stability or progress? Well, the level of participation allowed to citizens in each of these systems directly determines the amount of progressive and new ideas that can be entered into the debate. The ability to form majorities, as well as the ability to compromise, plays into higher levels of democracy. So, let's just come out and ask the big question. Which system best establishes key democratic principles? For a guide to answer this question, take a look at the PDF. Recap! Today we learned that multi-party systems do not always form clear majorities, which can cause instability and make policy creation difficult at times. However, they do allow for more progressive ideas into mainstream politics. We also learned that one-party systems ban other parties and typically do not fulfill democratic principles despite having constitutions. And that's it for us today. Time to throw a little party of our own. See you there. Oh, and don't forget to vote, debate, and participate.